I mean, I've just come onto a voice recorder, right, to start to document things on this experience, feeling like I'm in some kind of multiverse and kind of flitting from different dimensions my entire life, different kind of replicated worlds, parallel worlds. I've just come onto the voice recorders to start to document this, and there were four recordings. There were four recordings in voice. Memos, and there was all dated the 5th of March. So we've got 5555, which seems to be a theme through this process, the number 5. So this is my point. In this simulated reality, it doesn't matter, you're just not proving, you're not proving anything that life is a simulation. You're certainly not proving, you've been flitting through different dimensions your entire life. I mean, how could you prove that, how could you prove, say, in one reality, the simulation has orchestrated, a non-player character, these kind of artificial intelligence kind of replications of you. How could you really prove that, there's different dimensions, and in one dimension that you're unaware of, the simulation has created an identical you, that has, committed a crime, done something, and to that dimension looks like you. In that dimension, someone that looks like you, the replicated version of you, could be caught on CTV, and unbeknownst to that dimension where that happens, you're just unable to tell that, to say it's not you. It's like being on planet Earth 1, on planet Earth 1, and I'm in this house number 21 Pollet, Halifax, West Yorkshire, United Kingdom, right? And then there's another kind of replicated planet out there that's a kind of a mirror of yourself, an identical you in another dimension, planet Earth 2. And there could be a kind of carbon copy of you, an identical you, that the simulation has, made that replica, do something, commit a crime, do something where in that dimension, it could look like you. There could be evidence that, point to you. There could be, whatever crimes being committed, there could be CTV, there could be absolutely, overwhelming amount of things that could, like, kind of fit you to the scene of a crime, but whatever the context. And the conscious thinking aware, Aaron, me, in planet Earth 1, is unaware of what's going on in planet Earth 2. And then when you go to sleep and wake up, the next morning, you could be in that dimension. You could now be in planet Earth 2 as a conscious thinking aware, Aaron, unbeknownst to what the simulations has created in that reality, a replicated world. You haven't done it, you've not committed no crime, you've not done anything, but the simulation might have created something. And you wake up in planet Earth 2 as a consciously thinking aware, Aaron. And in that reality, something could be orchestrated where you could get blamed for a crime, you could be framed for something. well, not even necessarily framed in that dimension. The simulation, the main source creation could actually create anything, to almost, prove you guilty. They could create to prove you guilty. When you've not committed no crimes, but the simulation could create it to look like that. It's very hard to explain. Like to give this feeling like a plausible type of. You're dealing with something so advanced. You're dealing with something so, and if you can simulate life and simulate different realities, and it's just very complicated to even explain the kind of multiverse and parallel worlds. It's very hard to explain the theory, and kind of like how there could be like 10 kind of identical realities, parallel worlds, and there could be different versions of you in each of them 10 replicated worlds, non-player characters, these kind of these programs where you wouldn't be able to tell, like you can't tell, can you? That it's not the conscious of thinking aware Aaron. You just can't tell. Anyway, because I believe I've been in kind of parallel worlds my entire life, like flitting from different realities, but the same reality, but a different reality, as in like this bedroom in 21 Pullet. This might be one part of the simulation, one dimension, and tomorrow I might wake up. I'm waking up to the same ceiling. I'm waking up to the same fucking house, the same town, the same people. Everything is identical, but it might not be that same reality as I was in the day before. And because of being sectioned in 2009, for, like under some form of investigation, like did, I just felt I was like under some form of investigation for something to do with a sexually transmitted disease being passed on to someone, unbeknownst to me. It's almost like being framed, being framed for something you've not done. But whatever that dimension I was in 2009, they must have believed our foundation to think I'd committed whatever they thought. It's like I go to see the psychiatrist, and it was just a routine type of. I believe it was a routine meeting, and I can't remember if I got a letter to say come to the. But I went to see the psychiatrist and the junior doctor. Asked me how many sexual relationships have I had between 2003 and 2000. Well, the girlfriend I had at the time, which was Kat. My ex-girlfriend. And between my ex-girlfriend and Kat. So between 2003 and 2008, how many sexual partners have you had between 2003 and 2008? And I said, none. And the way it was like asking me these questions, to me, it was visibly angry, like hostile, like really angry, hostile the way it was asking me. taking blood, but not telling me why not giving me a logical reason, behind why they're taking blood. And when the results came back from pathology, uh, he's talking about my white cells being raised around my immune system, and he asked me if I'd had a cold in recent days. This is 2008. My blood comes back and he's asking me if I had a cold recently. And I said no. So if my white cells were raised, around my immune system, and then that tells me if I had not been ill recently in them days, well, I must have had some form of internal infection. Anyway, it's very difficult to go into, and I almost feel in this simulated reality that my words are being used against me. Like I'm talking here, but I feel like in this simulation my words are being twisted and manipulated. To make me sound like I'm saying something else in this reality that could be used in another dimension, that could be presented, that people could hear and think I'm talking about one thing when I'm not. Unable to know that there's some kind of editing going on. Like there's some kind of editing going on within the simulation. It's almost like I feel like I can't speak honestly and really go into detail about things. There's so many things that I want to mention and names and times in my life that I feel I can't speak. I don't think anything is for my benefit. I just feel every time I speak it's because of 2009 being sectioned for asking questions about my health, to wanting to know why they're prying into my sexual history, lying about blood, talking about my immune system, asking me if I was concerned, like I was concerned about anything. It's well documented my psychiatric history when I first came under the psychiatrist in the year 2000. My psychiatric history is well documented. The paranoia about, a certain disease. So that's well documented. But almost in 2008, it's almost like, I felt like under some form of investigation. And being asked questions about my sexual history, they're taking blood and they're not giving me a logical reason why. They're talking about my white cells being raised, asking me if I'd had a cold, which I'd not had a cold, and thinking about it, if I'd not had a cold, I must have had some form of internal infection. Now, they didn't tell me that there was anything wrong. They didn't say your blood's come back and it's abnormal. It's showing it's we need to do further tests basically. I went to see a psychiatrist in 2008 and I requested a sexual health test. So it's almost like I feel I had this feeling about 2008 that some kind of mistaken identity. A friend, one of my brothers. Something of a coincidence that someone's got a sexually transmitted disease, the worst one, and they passed it on to someone, and I'm the one that's being blamed for it. My name's come up in some way, like the questions between 2000, the sexual relationships between 2003 and 2008, makes me think there's either something in between, or there was something wrong with me. I did have some kind of sexually transmitted disease, and it's something to do with my ex-girlfriend, and that's maybe possibly why I was asked between my ex-girlfriend and the girlfriend I got now. But no one's ever said anything. My ex-girlfriend is I've never heard, you'd hear. If she went to get it tested and it come back with something wrong with her, and then, why haven't I been told? It's something you'd hear about, it's something you would not know. It's like, why ask me a question if they know something's wrong? Why ask me questions about my sexual history if they've got knowledge and something that suggests that I have got something wrong with me? I was paranoid about the disease. That's why I came under the doctor in the year 2000, because I was paranoid about the virus. But I was paranoid about it. I didn't know that I couldn't have a sexual, encounter, like, if I really believed that I could pass, that type of disease on. Any type of disease. Syphilis, chlamydia, anything. So this is what is making me think that I've been flitting through different dimensions. Because I think, about, this theory, of someone passing on a sexually transmitted disease, and I'm the one that's, I don't know, like a coincidence, a friend who used my name who's got a sexually transmitted disease and passed it on. A person used my, a one night stand. But that theory doesn't make any sense to the questions from the junior doctor. How many relationships have you had between your ex-girlfriend and the girlfriend you've got now? It seems very direct. It's a very specific question. It's wanting to know, of other partners that could potentially be at risk, or had been at risk, or be at risk. So the thought of mistaken identity and, a friend, using my name to have a one night stand, it's very flawed. Whatever they think I did in 2008, right, whatever the questions were about, in my opinion, in that reality, in that dimension, they must have had good foundation. They must have had something that, made them think that I'd passed on a sexually transmitted disease. But I didn't hear anything. No doctor or psychiatrist in my secret time never said. And I got a section in 2009. I've had many blood tests and nothing's ever come back bad. It's very hard to put into chronological to make sense of any of this. My entire life is in question. The multiverse and parallel worlds is something that I'm not educated with. It's very hard to even begin to make sense of the chronology, the timelines. 2009. I wasn't going to leave, the questions alone. But, being asked the questions by the junior doctor, and, taking blood and talking about the white cells, which made me think I had some type of internal infection at that time. They didn't say, no further tests, nothing. And in 2009, prior, just probably about a week before being admitted, on the 14th of August 2009, I said I wasn't happy, and I started talking about getting in contact with the Secretary of State. Naive at the time to think that'd make a difference. But I was talking about getting in contact with the Secretary of State, and I was going to go to the very top of this. I didn't like, there was something not right. There was something very fucking suspicious. Now, where I'm not educated, I'm not fucking stupid. If something doesn't make logical sense, you can't ask a person a question and then, just say, oh, I'm just doing my job. For a person that's not educated but not stupid, it's not really logical, is it? Why are you asking that question? Oh, I'm just doing my job. Well, what's your job? Well, it's just my job. It's a job that I'm doing, and this is my job. So that's your answer. You're asking me questions about my sexual history. You're taking blood and not giving me a logical reason. You're talking about my white cells being raised and keep asking me if I'm concerned for any reason. But when you start asking me if I'm concerned, that makes me a little bit concerned. So I wasn't going to leave things alone. I was going to get to the bottom of it. I was going to get in contact with the highest office in the fucking land. And again, naive at the time. Naive. And then on the 14th of August, the situations, my mum and pa, this kind of argument that led to me mum phoning the psychiatrist, and then the psychiatrist, and I'm not holding, there's no one to blame here. This is no one's fault. This is part of the simulated reality. This is part of, what reality is. It's why we was created. It's why It's why we are where we are today with quantum mechanics, and the multiverse theory is very much in the public domain. The film The Matrix, there's 3 Matrix films. Quantum mechanics and parallel worlds and the multiverse, and films have been made on this. Books have been wrote on this. PhD professors have wrote scientific papers on this. Nick Bostrom, the philosopher, has wrote a paper on this. The simulation hypotheses. These aren't delusional beliefs. These aren't delusions of grandeur. These are very plausible things in life. Only from my perspective, these things are an interest. I'm speaking from my own personal experience. I've got a first-hand account at this. I don't care for simulation and the Matrix. This is not an obsession. This is based on my life. This is based on facts. Well, facts that I can't prove, but that's the fucking point. This is my point I'm trying to make. Whatever they thought I did in 2009, they must have felt justified. They must have thought I'd done something and had good reason to think so. In 2009, like I said, prior to being on me, arguing with my ma, me and my ma, fall out. I don't want to go into detail because it's very fucking difficult. It's very fucking difficult to talk about these things. That's what I was so fucking, 2012, talking about 2009. It's not fucking easy when my mom's a good person, my dad's a good person, my family are good fucking people. People are good. People at times, psychiatrists, are good people. It's a system that's fucking bad. It's a simulation that's fucking bad. But 2009, prior to being married, fall out with my mum. Me and my mum get into an argument on the 13th of August 2009. And then the 14th of August, 1 o'clock, the doctors, the psychiatrists, the mental health team basically, my mum and pa on the door. And I said, no, you're not coming in. You're not coming in. Yeah, I mean, come on. I'm not fucking stupid. They're asking, prying me sexually, so taking blood. Something's a bit, like off. Something doesn't seem right. Do you think you're going to trust people? You really think you're going to, let people... Are you going to feel it open your door? When you've got every reason not to trust people and to think something is a bit off, something not fucking right. When you're not a fucking idiot, when you're not, mentally ill. Suffering from some delusion where people give a fuck about you and want to treat you and make sure you get better. I'm not naive to what the government can do in situations. Now, that's not being theatrical, that's a fact. I didn't want to open the door to let the doctor in because I didn't know where we're fucking going and what they were going to do. I'm talking about going to the top of the tree to the Secretary of State, and now I've got fucking psychiatrists on my door, I've got my ma and pa on the door. How the fuck am I supposed to think? But I did let the doctor in. My dad said, let him in. So I let the I'll let the psychiatrist in. I don't want to name names. I feel bad about naming. I don't want to name names. Which probably makes no fucking sense because surely, when you don't name names, it's. But I just feel bad when they fucking. But he came in, watched this about the Secretary of State, and I just said, well, I'm not happy with the questions I've been asked. There's something not right. You lied about taking blood. I'm not leaving it. I want to get to the bottom of why you're asking me personal questions about my sexual history and why you're lying about, you're talking about my immune system and you're asking me if I'm concerned for any reason. So that's it. I'm not mentally ill and, I'm not suicidal. I have no thoughts of harming others. I'm taking my medication for what fucking good that was. As I'm taking my medication, I'm not suicidal, don't want to harm others. I'm just concerned about things that you're asking me that you're not giving me a logical reason for the questions. Now, I'm sorry, if you go to the GP and the GP, asks you a question, there's a reason behind that. If I say, what do you mean by that question, doctor? He's not going to say, I'm just doing my job. All right, you're just doing your job. That explains it. I'll go on then. So I said that. I'm taking my medication for what fucking use. Looking back, I'm not suicidal. I have no thoughts of harming others. I'm just concerned that you're asking me questions that don't fit into schizophrenia, into psychiatry, into mental health. Now could you please leave? And then he left. And then there was a knock at the door. I looked through my PPO, being one of the chosen ones. I'm looking through my PPO and I see the police officers. So then I went to the kitchen, got a knife and I slit my wrist. And they put that on the reason I got sectioned. That's fucking incredible, isn't it? They actually used that, in their fucking argument for me being sectioned. Slit wrist. No, let's get the fucking story right. Right? I wasn't suicidal. I had no thoughts of harming myself. None. And certainly no thoughts of harming others. But I had no thoughts of harming anybody. Sorry, I had no thoughts of harming myself. Not one thought slit my wrist. When the doctor came in, and talks about the Secretary of State, I told him, I'm not suicidal, I have no thoughts of harming others, I'm taking medication. When the police knock on my door, I'm thinking, right, they're taking me somewhere, what's going to happen? So I slit my wrist then. Not on my own, isolated in my own house with no one around, in some kind of mental relapse, in some kind of psychotic fucking episode. I slit my wrist when I didn't know where they were going and what they were going to do. Anyway, briefly, I need to. It's very fucking. It's tiring. It really takes it out of me. And I don't like to speak with a certain tone. It's very difficult. But I was sectioned for 6 months. But I believe potentially that could have been and this is my point I'm trying to make. I believe that was some other dimension in the matrix, in the simulation. It's like whatever they thought I did, whatever the question, that's what's so bizarre. Because the questions, the junior doctor in this hostile, it was visibly angry when they were asking me these questions. Whatever he thought I'd done, it was visibly angry. But no one ever said, your blood's come back, it's abnormal. No one's ever said, you passed on a sexually transmitted disease. I was paranoid about the disease. It's almost like that's a different reality to, like kind of waking up in hospital, Saturday the 14th of August. Like it's a different reality where because I've been sectioned countless times and I'm not mentally ill. I've never been sectioned for being mentally ill. I've never been sectioned for having a mental disorder, being assessed from 2009. 2005 I was admitted under section 2. That was a genuine section in 2005. No, in 2005 the other side, thinking about things and, thoughts getting the better of me. 2005 was a genuine admission. When they assessed me and I got a section, put on a section 2, that was a genuine admission. I can look back at that, I can think about that, and I can say the doctors at that time sectioned me because they believed, in their opinion, I was suffering with some kind of, psychotic episode, something of a delusional thoughts. So 2005 is the only one I can look back on and think that was a genuine admission. That wasn't corrupt, that wasn't a conspiracy, that wasn't part of a cover-up, that was nothing to do with hepatitis or any other disease for that matter. That was a genuine, admission. But 2009 wasn't a genuine admission. I mean, I feel like I was, being sectioned to silence me, to keep me quiet, to label me a paranoid schizophrenic, so then anything I do say, I'm not taking seriously. No one's going to believe a paranoid schizophrenic against psychiatrists and parents, are they? I mean, you've got anything to say about the government? Well, all kinds of stuff can happen. All kinds of stuff, discredit you, that type of stuff, section you under the Mental Health Act, imprison you. There's all kinds of things that governments do to silence people, to suppress things, to stop their agendas, all kinds of stuff. Death included in some cases. And I almost feel like I'm going to get set up, I'm going to be framed for something, I'm going to be arrested for something. I've had these thoughts, for a long time, that I'm going to get framed and I'm going to get set up. And if I'm in the multiverse, if I'm going through different dimensions, the simulation could create like a non-player character, in one dimension that looks like me. You won't be able to tell the difference. And then, say, when I wake up the next morning, I'm in that dimension where they created whatever, unbeknownst to me. But in that dimension, they're going to, with foundation, believe that I've committed a crime because they're not going to think any otherwise when, there's so many things that a simulation could create in that reality. So I'm doing these little videos now just to document it, and I don't think it makes one bit of difference, but it'll help me sleep at night. It'll just make me feel a little bit more comfortable that, if that ever day comes when I get a knock at the door, Aaron Lynch, I'm arresting you on suspicion of, and I'm thinking, what do you mean? Because that day might come. 2009 I got a section. 2012 I got a section for talking about 2009. In 2012, I was talking about 2000. I wasn't on Facebook in 2009. 2012, I was talking about what led to the section in 2009, talking about, the HIV and hepatitis virus and, being asked these questions about my sexual history. I was talking about a cover-up. And unfortunately, plastering my fucking mum's fucking name all over Facebook. Talking about fucking health professional psychiatrists. At that time, I felt justified. At that time, in 2012, I felt justified to do that. Looking back, it's difficult. So it's 2012, a section for talking about 2009. And then 2016, the noise dispute with the next door neighbour, false complaints that I was playing my music loud again, all part of this process. 2018, 2019, never been section 1 since 2005 for any other reason apart from part of the agenda, part of reptilians, part of the matrix, the simulation. And I do anticipate the next event. I don't know if I'm going to get sectioned again for something. I don't know if I'm in a dimension where a lot of this is not known, and the dimension that I'm in don't know about any of this. It could raise concern. I believe I'm being monitored. I believe there's an audience aspect to reality. That there's an audience aspect that people get to kind of watch you, a bit like the Truman Show. It's why the Truman Show exists. Everything in life, without digressing, everything in life, every belief system, it's an aspect, it's an element of the main source of creation. The Truman Show, is, in my opinion, is an aspect in the simulation, but not necessarily in all dimensions. Some dimension there may be an audience aspect to reality where people get to watch you as a kind of form of Truman Show, but that might not be the case in all the dimensions. I could be in one dimension one day where there's an audience aspect, And then the next day I could be in a dimension that there's no audience aspect. You know, I'm speaking about these things, and the people say in different dimensions, they might be doing different things. They might be, you know, have different technological capabilities, different projects, you know, alliance with the reptilians and other ET groups. It might not be the same in each dimension. There might be so many different things in each dimension that in one dimension some things might be happening, other dimensions things might not be happening. So with me talking about all of this, I could potentially be in a dimension where I'm being monitored, you know, and I could be saying things that they don't have a clue about, that it's just not them. So I almost feel I could be admitted for that reason. I could be monitored, there could be, I don't know, a manipulated situation of, say, somebody's putting a concern. And there's no evidence. You don't have to provide evidence of who's put the concern in. Confidentiality is that. Someone could put in a I could get a knock on the door, you know, and the doctors could be there. All right, I'm in love with just, well, I don't think a psychiatrist would say love. Health professional maybe, but a psychiatrist wouldn't say love. But I could have the mental health team there. Aaron, can we come in? And I'd be like, why? Why? Well, what are you doing here? We just want to come in and just talk to you. Right? Why? I don't understand. Well, we've had a call, and someone who is a bit concerned for your well-being, and they're just, you know, so we're just coming out. Well, it's called. Well, we can't say. Well, why not? Well, confidentiality. So if someone cares about me, right? Because I've had no text to ask if I'm alright. No one's phoned to say if I'm okay, right? So if someone's phoned you to say they're concerned because they're concerned about my well-being, you can't tell me for confidentiality reasons. And you're telling me someone cares. Well, this person who cares, right? This person that cares me so much hasn't rang me to talk to me. I've had no conversation. The only conversations I have is with my fucking self. I don't know if you know that. I don't know if you know. The only conversation I have, really, right, is with myself. And what I'm... if they can't get you one way, they'll get you another. You say that and they're going to fucking section you. It's a very good point, is that. What I mean is... is psychiatrist, right? No one's phoned me to say they care, you know, to ask if I'm okay, where I might have been talking about Martians and all that type of stuff. No one's phoned me and, you know, I'm talking about being a prophet of God and an extraterrestrial from outer space where they'd be concerned, and that's why they phoned you. So whoever cares about me doesn't care because they haven't phoned me to speak to me to see if I'm... Anyway, do come in. please come in. So there doesn't have to be a reason behind why the mental health team could come out. If I'm in this, like, a certain dimension, you know, and there's different kind of, like, things that are done, and I could be saying things that could be a concern. I might have been in a dimension where I'm talking about things they're doing, you know, and they might be a bit concerned by that, you know, by thinking, oh shit, he's fucking, what if he starts talking to people and people start believing it? Which is very daft, isn't it? Which is very daft. No one would ever listen to a word I've got to say. I'm labelled as a paranoid schizophrenic. No one listens to what I say. No one's going to take me seriously. And the things I talk about as well are in the realm of things that are in the public domain. I'm not saying I'm a prophet of God or anything that would, you know, be deemed as delusional. I'm talking about very plausible, you know, theories in life. I'm talking about things that exist in the public domain. The things I talk about are not delusional. That fall into the category, I mean, maybe they're a little bit way out, you know, there. But in some dimensions, you might talk about something that, you know, they feel the need to address. Anyway, I'm going to quickly sum up. I mean, I can't sum up, really. But I'm just going to quickly end this. I'm doing these recordings now because I honestly think, right, it's quite possible, not believe, not saying it will, just a possibility that the next event will either be another section, right, for not the right reasons. I could be, arrested and charged with some crime. There's so many things that could happen with it, because this has been going on since 2009. Being sectioned and in 2016 is what the noise dispute. And this is why I think there's an audience aspect, and why I believe part of why being flitting from different dimensions and parallel worlds. Because the noise dispute in 2015 was the noise dispute. 2015 was the noise dispute, which led to the 2016's admission. And it was an armed siege, because again, I was being sectioned for their agenda, for their whatever they were doing at the time. Noise complaints were being put in, and I wasn't playing my music. False complaints were being put in about my music. I agreed with the neighbour to play in the times, she was at work. I was playing within those times. I actually said, to resolve the issue, like to make sure that there's a mutual type understanding, of me playing my music. Because the last time I looked, the noise kind of, laws, right? The noise laws and housing association laws, it's not illegal to play music. It's the excessive amount, it's the time of the day. It's late at night, it's prolonged, hours. I used to play my music, like an hour just to do a video to upload to Facebook. And I don't know anyone who can play guitar for 10, 15 hours where it would become like this annoyance. And let's say I was playing it for 10 hours and, there was a noise complaint. I still wouldn't do that again. I said I would apologise. I say I do apologise. And then because of the first noise complaint letter I got from housing, I went round to see the neighbour. And again, I don't want. It sounds very stupid, this, but I feel like I feel bad for like making it personal when I don't blame anyone. I don't want to speak about names, especially when I'm speaking like this with this tone. It's very difficult, to speak in a. I just don't want to mention people's names, being a 44-year-old dickhead, and the tone, in the tone I speak. I don't want to get personal and almost pass judgment, all that type of stuff. It's fucking stupid. But I went round and we had a mutual agreement. I said, if you can tell me the times you're out, at work, I'll play within them times, and then when I know you're home, right, I won't play my music. No other neighbour could hear my music. There was no other in the beginning, there was no other complaints. In the beginning, the first noise complaint letter, there was no other complaints. No one could hear no other neighbours. The one diagonal, the houses across the street was too far, and I was playing within the day. So we mutually had an agreement of playing within a certain time when she was at work. And that is the only times I played. And I was still getting noise complaints put in. There was still noise complaints, being put in. And I'm thinking, I'm playing with the times, she's at work. It's like, I don't understand. Why am I getting a second letter? And then the housing officer came out to talk about it. And I said, I'm playing with the times that she's at work. I don't understand why this is fucking going on. And then someone from some restorative justice council, some mediator, some person that is something of a storyteller, she gets involved to mediate between me and John, which is incredible. I've actually got a recording of that conversation where, towards the end of the dispute, towards the end of the situation, I was talking to the woman from Restorative Justice Council, and she said it doesn't matter if she's in or out. Right. So I can't play my music, right, even if she's out of the fucking building. If that were the case, no one could ever have a barbecue, no one could ever have the music on a Friday night. No one could ever play music because it doesn't matter if the person's in or out. This is what I'm up against, the logic, this is part of this fucking process. It doesn't matter if she's in or out. But I do find one thing clever at that time. I do find one thing clever from whatever dimension I was in at that time, right? Now, this was an act of genius, I think, right? There was no other complaints apart from the next door neighbours, which were false, right? Made up. I personally think it has something to do with the reptilians in the vicinity, negative energy. You know, the reptilians' need for negative energy, you know, putting me through great amounts of stress. You know, you're not going to get more stressed than someone putting accusations against you, and it's just not true. If that's not going to get you frustrated and get you a little bit, like, pissed off, I don't know what is. When you're not doing anything wrong, and someone's saying you are, and you've got fucking housing, you've got everyone, even friends and family at the time. I had friends telling me to put my earphones in. You know, I had another friend saying the next door neighbour was an elderly lady. Making out, there's this elderly frail lady next door, and I'm banging out some fucking thrash metal, drinking cans of fucking Stella, and whacking them on my fucking head. And making out she's an elderly lady, a frail elderly lady. Like I'm this demonic fucking next door, like neighbour from fucking hell. People telling me to put my earphones in. Do what they tell you. Right, so when you invite friends around for a drink on a Friday night, right, and you're drinking your vodka or your cans of Stella or your Lambrina or your Frosted Jacks, right, you're telling me that all your friends that you have around, you all wear earphones when you got your music on. What about a barbecue in the summer? Right, you got a barbecue, right, someone's making burgers, flicking the sausages, everyone's getting pissed, shirts off, fucking, Union Jack on your tattled on the England flags everywhere, music blaring out. You're telling me you all wear fucking earphones? So I play my music, I'm about to wear earphones, you play your music, and that's fucking different. Anyway, the section in 2016, there was an armed siege, police finally come in, armed siege, the special forces of the police brigade. Right, so they come in, I'm launched into my guitar, not personal, it's not, I don't think things are personal, but I'm launched into the guitar, I've got a wound on my head, and I'm sat down on the floor, the copper puts the handcuffs on me, and I said, why are you doing this? Because I'm in a state of fucking disbelief. Why are you doing this? And he said, it's what you've been doing. So I think, I look back to that and I think, what do you mean what I've been doing? And this is why I think there's like an audience aspect to the situation. Like people have this kind of, where they can watch you in have a view of where you are, in your bedroom, in the kitchen, wherever. So there's an audience aspect. And I feel when he said it's what you've been doing, I almost feel like he must have seen something or heard something that, that he thought I'd done. And that's why it's what you've been doing. I don't know. It's all very. I can't put things into a chronological order. It's impossible to put things into that wouldn't make sense. It's impossible. You're talking about the multiverse and parallel worlds and reptilians, all these things, archons and ETs having the ability to change human form, to change any form like a chameleon does. Almost like entities that have the ability to take your physical form. To speak like you, to act like you, to talk like you, where you wouldn't be able to tell. It's impossible to even come up with a plausible theory for my entire life, and at certain times and certain points where I could have transcended to a different part of the simulation. It's exhausting. When I talk to people like Cap, it's exhausting for me. When I talk about people about all of this, it gives them a fucking headache. And I can understand. I can understand why a person thinks, for fuck's sake, Karen, give it a rest. If I had me talking for 2 minutes, I would have stopped fucking listening, in the first minute. I would have stopped fucking listening in the first minute. So I'm doing this little recording now, right? I'm going to make this the last video as well because I don't honestly believe I need to do anything else, really. I'm just going to end this and then I'm going to just I'm just gonna not. I'm not gonna do this. This type of recording again. I believe it makes no difference. I believe it makes no difference whatsoever. You can't narrate the program. It's impossible. Whatever the system creates and does, well, you're not. No one's proving anything in the Matrix, basically. I'm just doing this because I feel I could get sectioned again, under false. Not because I'm suffering with a mental relapse or I'm delusional or, I'm taking my medication, I'm not suicidal, I have no thoughts of harming others, I don't feel like anyone's out to get me. So I don't think the criteria to having a mental relapse, and I don't believe I'm a god, I don't believe I'm a prophet of God, I don't believe I'm reptilian royalty, I don't believe that, I'm here on some space fucking mission. I don't think I'm travelling through different dimensions to as some kind of Trojan horse, to change the course of history or anything like that. I'm just in a very unusual situation that is impossible to really explain. I can't prove anything like simulation and different dimensions. How can you? I'm just doing this so I can sleep at night. So if I get the knock, I'm arresting you on suspicion of. What do you mean? Come with us. Why? Just come with us. We'll talk to you down the station. But don't worry, we'll not give you a good kicking. Anyway, that's it. No, that's not it. I'm gonna quickly just end it in a sensible fucking way. I feel I could be arrested for something I'm not done, but to the people arresting me, it might look like I have done something. All the evidence might lead to say me committing a crime, when in reality it's a main source of creation in a dimension that has created a replica of me, right, and made that replicator do something, and then I could wake up in that dimension where that has been created, unbeknownst to the people in that dimension, unbeknownst to, say, a police officer who's coming to arrest me for something they think I've done, unbeknownst to them, all the evidence could lead to me. There could be fingerprints, there could be DNA, there could be, CTV, there could be all kinds of things where the police officers, could think I've actually done it, and they're not going to think otherwise. They're not going to believe any parallel world shit. They're not going to believe, multiverse. It's just not going to be believed. It's impossible, especially when they're going to be part of the program. They're going to be limited to having critical thinking to be able to even contemplate that being plausible, to even contemplate that's possible. So they're going to have a limited, capacity to, it'll be controlled, just like life itself. It's a computer program. There's a narrative. There's a storyboard. So I'm doing this so I can sleep comfortably. So if I get a knock on the door, and that happens, at least I've got some form of, well, listen to this. It might not fucking help, it probably won't help, but just listen. I'm talking about these things. Do I sound like, would this be fucking premeditation? All this is premeditation. I'm sorry, I don't know any fucking person out there who's, a criminal or whatever, thinking this fucking far ahead. So I'm doing this, if I get a knock on the door, I can think, right, okay, here we go. You're arresting me for something, right, well, I know I'm not doing anything, I know that I'm not committed any crime, but, whatever you think, you've got a good reason to, but it's not me, right, it's a simulation, it's a different dimensions, right, and that's basically it.